Welcome to episode 19 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
And today we have Bruce McLean from CCL North Ltd and Restructa, so two separate companies. The CCL North recycles waste electrical and electronic equipment, so WEEE, and Restructa focuses on recycling of televisions, initially the old type TVs and then the flat screen TVs. So if you want a bit of a nostalgia trip through electronics, Bruce is your man, but more of him later on. Usual roundup from ourselves in terms of news that's happening. A couple of things. We're back in the old vape subject. So Jane, I think you've got an update on that.
Yeah, I have. We've heard something about Scottish Government are looking at a consultation on banning single-use vapes. So they've finally seen that there is well, not finally seen, but identified that there is an issue with the amount of research and everything that's been happening, and with our information from Laura the other week about the vapes. So hopefully, looks like there's a consultation on the proposed ban to be held in the next year. So watch out for that, and let's make sure we all respond.
Yeah, I was in a Scottish Government call last week on behalf of Switch about vapes, and it was quite interesting because it was being hosted both by the environment and the health side. So they're looking at it both from the environmental side and the health side. And I think some of the health statistics that are coming through in terms of effects on people's health and their teeth and their gums and all this sort of stuff sounds pretty horrific. So I think the general view of the meeting was there's not much good that can be said about vapes, but there's big pressure from the people that produce them and sell them to keep them there. So it'll be interesting when the consultation comes out. The other thing that was interesting, the material focus. So Scott Butler, who we had on episode 15, his organisation has re-estimated the number of vapes that think are being discarded every week, and they reckon it's now 5 million disposable vapes across the UK every week, which sounds, horrific sort of figures for, when we're trying to reduce consumption, look after the resource and so on. So hopefully the consultation will move forward, and hopefully other parts of the UK will also look at bans. I think France, for example, is looking at a ban or going to ban. So I think it's watch this space in the old disposable vapes.
Yeah, it's just shocking, isn't it? The amount that's getting used and thrown away. And the more I've got into little shops and corner shops and everything, the more I'm seeing all these brightly coloured packages. I'm thinking, oh wow, there's so many different types and so many different colours and flavours. It's just, and the fact that there's like shops just purely selling, I mean, the tobacco industry or whatever, they must make a fortune on it. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be quite a lot of like you say, opposition to the ban. Kind of sort of moving on, but more about fires, I suppose, because we've been talking about fires we've been talking about fires from batteries at waste recycling centres. There's been fires in the back of bin lorries, and now just recently the landfill site at Dunbar, that's been on fire as well. So that's been quite a challenge for everybody, I think, because it's really difficult once it goes on fire. It's really difficult to put it out because it's under the ground as well, and if you're using lots of water or whatever to try and put these out, all the contamination and everything else like that, it's trying to contain everything as well and making sure that nothing goes out into the atmosphere or the environment. So yeah, I know a long time ago that used to be part of the waste management process, didn't it? You take your rubbish to the tip and then put it on fire and then cover some more. But I think that's kind of like gone by the wayside since. So yeah, not a good thing for the fire to be at the landfill site at Dunbar.
I remember vividly going out to Tiree, the island of Tiree, when I was in my 20s, and every day around 2 o'clock there was a plume of smoke came up from the centre of the site, and that was the waste had all been brought to the middle of the island to where the landfill site is, and a match was put to it, and it was burnt, and it happened every day, and that was, you know, fairly recently. So it was, if you like, tried and tested practice. But I suppose in these days the amount of plastic in the waste stream is much less than, you know, it is now. Interesting, the fires in landfill, I've experienced quite a few. Quite often the fire actually comes into the site, so it's actually in the waste that's been delivered, so it's smouldering things, it's barbecues that are smouldering away, but as you say, once they get started, they're really difficult to put out, and quite often it's not water that puts them out, it's digging them out and sort of removing the waste and then damping it down and effectively smothering them and stopping the oxygen getting into the fire. But challenging times when they do go on fire to get them out. So sticking with landfill, I suppose. The other big news, which has been, we've been mentioning it over the last few podcasts or over various podcasts, it's been sitting bubbling away, is the issue of persistent organic pollutants, POPs, in what they're now calling WUDs, which was a new acronym to me. I had to Google it. So this WUDs are waste upholstered domestic seating. So what they did was they put persistent organic pollutants in these as a fire retardant, but the problem is you're not allowed to landfill these persistent organic pollutants. So we're at a situation where any sofas, any chairs, anything like that are discarded that have got this upholstered material in them and need to go for its incineration. So, and that ban is meant to have been in place, you know, for a while. So it's causing absolute mayhem across Scotland with local authorities. So if they're taking their household waste, recycling waste straight to an incinerator, that's fine because it's going to be incinerated. If they were taking that to be sorted and then landfilled or whatever, then they've got to change that immediately. So there's big issues in terms of how this ban, if you like, it's almost been banned before we've got the infrastructure in place to actually deal with it. So I think there'll be a lot of chat in the sector over the next few weeks and months in terms of how they actually cope with it. So watch this space, but that is another acronym for us. And what was also interesting about the POPs is when we talked to Bruce McLean later, he's got quite an interesting take in the work they've done with POPs, particularly in television sets and the plastic into television sets. So listen out for that later on in the podcast.
Just seems a bit bonkers, doesn't it? That you kind of sit on these sofas for years and years and years, and suddenly, when you want to get rid of them, all of a sudden they're hazardous waste, and it's like, oh my goodness. And you're kind of thinking, well, I've been sat on that sofa for years and it's been fine. So yeah, but anyway, you know.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is it's down to the Stockholm Convention, and that's what's defined them as being hazardous in terms of disposal. So the regulators in the UK have got little choice but to enforce the ban. But it's going to be interesting because the incineration plants aren't particularly set up to take, you know, a huge number of old sofas and cushions and all that sort of stuff. So there is going to have to be a bit of infrastructure put in place, and that's not going to happen quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. Although there's a ban in place, it's just, you know, if there's no place to take the stuff, what's going to happen? You know, and you do hear some local authorities are talking about refusing to accept that stuff. So what do you do if you've got a sofa you need chucked out and the council won't take it? You know,
Yeah,
it's more unlikely going
to.
Yeah, it's more likely going to turn up at a back lane someplace, and the council's going to end up with it anyway. So there's a lot of work needing done anyway, put it that way. But myself and Jane were talking earlier on. If anybody is an expert on POPs and how to manage them, how to do it, we'd love to hear from you, because I think we're both sitting thinking we don't actually know enough about this subject to talk about it. So anybody out there, quite happy to have a chat.
Be interesting to see how you would measure it in these sofas. You know, can you actually do some testing? You know, like we do with the plastics, and you can zap it and it'll tell you what type of plastics. Can you zap the textiles and it'll tell you yes it's pops or yes it isn't, or is that just some sort of pie in the sky idea?
Well, I think that's the approach Bruce took with the television sets, isn't it? So he did measure the pops, but I think the difficulty, you know, although I can't remember the numbers he rhymed off, but it was a lot of different models of televisions. But if you think about furniture, it's even, you know, it'll be running into the tens of thousands of different types of furniture. And at least 9 times out of 10, he's got a barcode that you can scan so you can work out the product name and so on, whereas a sofa might not have that. So interesting times. And then I've not had a rant for a wee while, so I need a bit of a rubbish rant. I was down in Cardiff at the weekend because I was doing a wee race on Saturday. And because I was a wee bit sore, I woke up quite early, so I went for a wander around Cardiff city centre on Sunday morning, and what a mess the place was in. The amount of litter and garbage just strewn every place was just shocking. And when you look at the size of the team of, you know, between litter collectors, road sweepers and so on, and cleaning up, you just think, you know, surely we've got a better use for all that resource and all that manpower than picking up litter because people can't be bothered using a bin.
Yeah, I know Anna, my daughter's saying she lives over in Edinburgh, and during the festival period and all that sort of stuff again, and the Fringe, Edinburgh's very similar to that, just rubbish and waste everywhere because there's so many people. I mean, you know, it's just difficult to keep up with it. And, you know, where there's not enough bins, and, you know, instead of like putting it somewhere else, people put it next to a full bin, so you just end up with piles of rubbish. So yeah, it's just hard work, isn't it?
You do wonder.
Yeah. But we've got some good news. We've had we started our TikTok. Yes, Albion are on TikTok. So
you almost sound as if you know what you're talking about here, Jim.
I know. Well, do you know, I've not done TikTok before because Alicia's our young person who knows all about these things. So I actually logged onto it and, you know, put all my stuff in, and I watched this TikTok video. Oh my God, it's so good. We've had 700 views so far, and it's about the guys going out and doing the monitoring. I'm always kind of thinking that, you know, Callum, the youngest one, was going to do a little dance or something like that. We can get a TikTok Albion dance, but I don't think he was really up for it. But it looked good, and good music to go with it. So we'll definitely put the link for everybody to go and have a look. Well done, Alicia. That's all I say. And the boys.
No, it looked good. And it highlighted the type of work we're doing site. So hopefully we're going to do a few more of these. We're going to pick up some other subjects we do. Next one we've got is, and I think I mentioned this last time in the last podcast, but I was actually scared to mention because I didn't know if it was for public release or not. So Albion has been nominated for the best management KTP, that's Knowledge Transfer Partnership, at the 2023 annual KTP Awards in Cardiff. So that was down to the KTP we did with Heather Beattie, previous co-host, and University of West of Scotland. So quite delighted to be nominated for that. It was a little bit stressful last week when I had to go and get filmed for the wee film they're going to put together. So I'm hoping the man is very good at cutting and editing. My poor attempt of being, I don't think I'm made for TV appearances. So hopefully his editing skills are up to the mark. But looking forward to that in, I think it's October. I do need to get organised and get back down to Cardiff.
I suppose the last thing, we've got a couple of things. We've been having our polls at the end of our podcasts, and I think the last poll was, do you think vape should be banned? And we've had a 90% yes to a ban. So, you know, Scottish Government, there you go. That's a good call there. And then we also had another poll, which was, would you consider a career in the waste industry? And surprisingly, 100% said yes. So I'm not quite sure who's responding to all of these polls. Presumably 100% of the people in the waste industry. So if there's anybody out there who's not in the waste industry, would you consider a career in the waste industry? Of course you would.
Anyway, I think that's all from us for this week. It's just over to Bruce McLean. He's been in the industry as long as I can remember. Very practical, very pragmatic about the sector. Does some pretty good and impressive work in the sector. So, and as I said, a bit of a nostalgia trip down the technology routes. If you're a technology geek, this is the one for you. So over to Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. It's nice to meet you. How are you? How are you doing? Welcome to Rubbish Talk.
Thanks, Jane. Yeah, I'm all good here. How's things with you?
Okay, no, not too bad at all. The sun's shining today, so we're all happy.
Glorious, isn't it?
I know, it's great. So we're going to start by, if you can just tell me a bit about who you work for and a background about the organisation, and a bit about your role in the organisation or organisations.
Yeah, sure. Well, nowadays I'm managing director of Optimum Eco Group. We're now a group of companies, but it's really, at the moment, it's an amalgamation of the two companies that I've been managing director of for forever. I think the last 23 years with CCL North and 18 years since 2005 with Restructa Ltd. So, we've had an excellent time with both the companies. Up until now, they've been in separate ownership, and what we've done is try and bring them both together to work under a group heading with the intention of possibly adding more companies into the group, either by expansion or through diversification. For people that have never heard of either Restructa or CCL North before, CCL North recycle electronic equipment. They actually specialise in secure recycling of IT equipment in particular. But alongside that, we also collect in small mixed WEEE. It's known as, from the civic community sites in Scotland. So we have a processing facility for that, also for secure processing of IT equipment. Restructa, we formed it in 2005 specifically to recycle televisions, and only televisions. At that time it was CRT type tellies, and they were...
You'll need to explain what CRT TVs are to the younger generation, Bruce. Some of the younger generation don't know where they are.
Aye, right. Well, they were great big muckle heavy things. A cathode ray tube was what CRT stands for. And they were huge, way before flat screens became popular. So we set the business up just to do CRTs, and the business plan actually says this business got a lifespan of between 5 and 7 years. And here we are now, 18 years later on. We're absolutely busier than ever. Processing predominantly flat screens now, but we still get considerable volumes of cathode ray tubes in as well. Probably maybe about 10% of what comes in every day is still CRTs. So we bring in about 2,000 TVs every single day.
Wow.
So that's 200 CRTs every day that need to all get treated, and treated well.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in here again, Bruce. The CRT process is quite interesting for how you actually do that. It's quite a technical sort of thing, or was at the time when you first set it up, is that right?
Yeah, I think all of it is fairly technical. The tube itself is fairly dangerous, I suppose, if you don't know what you're doing with them. They have a habit of imploding. There's a huge vacuum inside them, and they're extremely violent. If one implodes, you wouldn't want to be standing within 20 feet of it. So, I think you only do that once. You learn your lesson fairly quickly if you do have an accident. But they're made up of predominantly two different types of glass. The front screen, the bit that you look through, is quite a thick, chunky glass. And it's the heaviest part of the tube. And it tends not to have anything harmful in it at all. Complicated part for some people is the funnel tube that's on the back. of the CRT, because it contains and is deemed to be hazardous. Never quite understood that. That's the rules, and that's what we have to live by. It has about 15% lead oxide in it, whereas a crystal tumbler that you might want to enjoy your whisky out of, to qualify as being lead crystal, it must have a minimum of 25% lead oxide in it. I don't know who makes the rules. So yeah, we've the technique is to split the TV tube around its join. So where the screen attaches to the funnel, there's a lead frit which they use to join the two pieces of glass there. So we need to split it just on the screen side of that lead frit, so we don't get any lead attaching to the screen. We use a special machine with hot wires in it. We actually wrap the wire around where we want the screen to split, and we heat it up for about a minute, and then we switch the current off and blast it with cold air, and that causes a thermal shock because it's two different types of glass. They shrink at different rates, and it should split very nice and cleanly around where the wire is, and it's quite an effective technique. We've used it really since the very start. In actual fact, the machines that we bought in 2005 by last year were worn out, surprisingly. And we had to search the world to find somebody that could build us a new machine. So, and I'm sure there's not much of a market these days for somebody selling hot wire CRT splitters, but that's what we did. So we managed to find a German company to manufacture two new machines for us, and it's running extremely well, and we still use that same technique. It's important for us to keep the glass separate, because we're now manufacturing a product from the panel glass, the screen glass on the front of the display. The product is a decorative aggregate. We manufacture it in 3 different sizes, and we use a company in England now to market it for us on our behalf, and it goes into, it can go into gardening applications, but other people have used it for unique projects. There is actually a house that's been built on the side of Loch Awe in Scotland. The whole of the outside of the house is coated with tiles, which has our glass impregnated into those tiles. And last I heard, it was up for some international award. It is in the last 4 finalists for this international award, and you never know, it might win.
Wow.
It's clever stuff.
That's quite impressive. It's like a TV house.
Aye, a TV house.
TVs, how to recycle your TV into a house.
Aye, but I mean, I think we calculated how many TVs it took to actually cover this whole house in this glass aggregate. And I think it came out about 9,000 TVs are used, because we can only use that part of the display. It's not the whole TV. And also we grade it, so we get 3 different sizes. So I think the 9,000 figure came based on the fact that it's only a third of what we produce, but it's quite unique.
That's quite impressive.
And what about all the new flat screens? Are they proving difficult challenges for you in terms of recycling? Because there's quite a variety of types now, isn't there?
There's a great variety of types. Mostly, there was some plasma ones early on, which are kind of more similar to CRTs, as they have fluorescent coatings in them. But since then, it's been mostly some form of liquid crystal technology that's in them. So the early ones were simply called LCD. The newer ones were called LED, but the LED actually just referred to the backlight that is built into the display. It still has an LCD in front of it, actually generating all the colours and your pictures. The backlight's just there to make it brighter. And the early LCD ones had basically mini strip lights in it, fluorescent tubes, which contain mercury. Quite a range of hazardous materials in there, but we know what those materials are. We know them quite well.
Do they still have mercury in them? You said the early ones, LCD ones, are mercury. Do the newer ones have mercury in them as well?
The LED ones have LED lights behind them. The older LCD TVs and computer monitors and the like, they have these fluorescent tubes in them with mercury. So they need to be removed. They need to be removed whole, preferably, to prevent any mercury leaking out, and they need to be removed under controlled conditions. It's not something really that you'd want to put through a shredder, for example. And the new ones are organic LED, which is a brilliant technology. The colours on the TVs are vast. The thinness of the display is huge. It doesn't need backlights in it. It generates its own lights and colours. And the really nice thing about all of these LCDs is that they were invented here in the UK. Liquid crystal was invented around about 1974 at Hull University. They still are probably the leaders in liquid crystal technology, and to this very day the Liquid Crystal Institute is based there, and they're doing additional work now on advanced technologies using organic LED. But the organic LEDs, so you'll see them, obviously big screen TVs, right down to these small Samsung phones now that you can fold up. They've got flexible displays in them. That's organic LED. And I'm pleased to say that organic LED was invented in Edinburgh by a joint venture between Napier University and the University of Edinburgh. That was in the late 90s. Unfortunately, they did spin off a couple of companies to try and manufacture the organic LED in sort of volume production. They weren't quite so good at that. The whole thing ended up going bust, and LG, who are the TV manufacturers from South Korea, came along and bought all the technology and rights to it, and mastered the manufacturing process. And the Sony and the Samsung QLEDs or OLEDs and stuff, you find most of them are actually manufactured by LG, the actual display panel on it.
It's really interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm getting a history lesson here as well. I like this. So, but that question, but organic LED, what makes it organic?
Good question. I was sort of carrots or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Does it, do they give it nice fertilizers or something? I have no idea.
Yeah, they've got some organic chemistry in there that when they excite this chemical, it glows different colours, which is how you get your RGB colours, because every TV, including CRTs, really is made up of just three colours, red, green and blue. Everything else is a combination of those things. So I don't know exactly. I could give you the name of a guy in Edinburgh to phone if you want to find out. But,
We'll get him on. I was going to say, Bruce, but it would almost stop people from using acronyms, but you've rattled off a huge number of acronyms. But I'm hoping people know what CRTs and all these different things are. But if we don't, we can put together a wee list at the end.
We can do that, certainly.
Well, I was thinking RGB, and then I thought, no, red, green, blue. And you said that. So that's I can take that off my list.
So in terms of that's obviously what you're doing at the moment. In terms of how you got into the industry, was it planned, or was it? What's your background?
No, it definitely wasn't planned. It's good fun. I'm quite enjoying this industry. It's maybe not quite the same amount of pressure as I had previously. Originally, I left school at 16, and I was very fortunate to land an apprenticeship in Dundee with Timex, who back in the 70s that was, and they were still making wind-up watches. It's a 4-year apprenticeship. And just around about the time that I was finished my apprenticeship, somebody invented a digital watch. Nobody wanted wind-up watches anymore. So Dundee was in panic mode. So we started diversifying into electronic products. I got sent away for 6 months to the Microelectronics Education Development Centre, which is still there. It's still located in Paisley. It was Paisley Tech at the time, but it's now University of West of Scotland. But I was hurriedly re-educated into microelectronics. I'd had a bit of a start because I'd spent quite a lot of time in automation within Timex, working on robots and machines to assemble mechanical wind-up watches, believe it or not. So I understood a bit, and I'd done some courses on robotics, so I kind of understood some of the logic part of it. And by the time I returned to Timex after that training, we'd started making products for Sinclair Research. So the ZX81 computer, they were all manufactured by Timex in Dundee.
Wow. Oh my God, that takes me back.
Yeah.
My brother had a ZX81. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say there are going to be some computer geeks listening to this and thinking this is a bit of a nostalgia trip here, Bruce.
Yeah.
Well, in 1982 then, the Sinclair Spectrum came along, the ZX Spectrum. And for we carried on producing it for about 18 months, but we realised fairly quickly that it wasn't performing too well on the carpet in front of a TV when the kids are kind of lying on the floor, and the ventilation in the bottom of the casing of the computer is kind of blocked. It would overheat, and the other problem we had was some of the chips inside it. We were creating our own worldwide shortage of these chips. Through my wonderful education that I'd received at Paisley, I came up with an idea, redesign the Spectrum computer using a single chip to replace 6 other chips that were actually, they used quite a lot of power themselves. But there's a new technology which is a high-speed CMOS version. The other one was TTL. There's more acronyms. We can talk about them later. But I made the suggestion that we could design a single chip that would take the place of these other 6 chips, and we could use this high-speed CMOS, and it'd be a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient. Nobody really believed me, so they sent me away down to Sinclair Research in Cambridge to meet with the boffins down there. Allowed me to explain it to them, and they said, great, go and do it. So I set about actually designing a chip that is in all the latest versions of the Sinclair ZX Spectrum and all its variants. Shortly after that, I left Timex. I moved to a company that manufactured microchips, but also manufactured liquid crystal displays for the next, how many years? 12 or 15 years. I spent quite a lot of time with various companies around the world designing liquid crystal displays into lots of different types of products. I worked in Italy designing car phone handsets and designing displays into those. Designed a display that is in every seat armrest in the Boeing 777 aircraft. Finished up in Finland, designing displays for military aircraft, and then eventually came back to Scotland and worked for a company for a short time. We were actually developing a flexible plastic LCD at a location just along the M8 corridor, and that was my job when I fell into recycling. We were asked to do a job for Motorola along the road. They'd made, about 1 million phones, and they'd put the wrong chip in it. And they needed a special machine to be able to remove this chip and replace it with the chip that should have been there in the first place. And because of the technology that we'd brought in from Japan to do these special displays, that was able to do the job for them. So we removed hundreds of thousands of chips, and replaced them with the right one, sent them all back to Motorola, and then we said, do you want these chips back? And they says, oh, no, it's against corporate policy. I'm saying, but there's nothing wrong with the chips. It's actually a reprogrammable part. So I don't know why you didn't just reprogram it where it was, but, you can dump another program into it and reuse it. But they said no. So I said, well, can we have them then? So they said, yeah. So we tidied them all up and repackaged them into tubes, and then we started selling them around the world. There was, at that particular time, huge markets for refurbished components. And so we approached a number of other manufacturers in Scotland and, said, can we take your scrap away and we'll split the value that we get for your stuff. And some people were very anxious about letting us have their scrap. But, when they got like $60,000 back for it, they were super delighted and just gave us more scrap. And at that time, there's a lot of companies in Scotland producing a lot of scrap. So, it was quite busy. And that's really how I fell into the waste management. I didn't realise it was waste management until SEPA knocked on my door and said, can you do that? You need to have a waste management licence. And we were going, what? So, we had to go through the process that I've been through since then twice as well with SEPA of writing a waste management application and putting as much technical detail in it as possible. And then SEPA have to compare that against their guidelines that are aimed at landfill sites and say, how does it fit with, what they do in a landfill site? So, yeah, a few interesting discussions with SEPA along the way, but it's all been really good fun.
And I would certainly agree that the waste management licence and regs don't quite fit your type of operation, but they're made to fit, aren't they, to a certain extent? But interesting, from what I know about CCL, you're still doing very similar, aren't you? You're still, if you like, finding the high value bits, selling them as working components, if you like, and then you're finding value elsewhere. That's the sort of business model, if you like, you're still using.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when CCL was started, that was specifically what it was there to do, was, taking scrap assemblies from the manufacturers that were in Scotland and achieve value from it. But unfortunately, those manufacturers are all gone now. So we were forced really to have to diversify, which took us along the paths of IT recycling. But yeah, we're still very keen to, we try our hardest not to treat anything as waste as it comes in. It's an unfortunate set of regulations in Scotland that means it has to be waste when it comes in, but we're able to recover lots and lots of different things from it and achieve value wherever we possibly can. It tends to be quite a manual process. It's not something that you can shred it and pick the bits out of it. You've really got to dismantle everything by hand. But along the way, that has absolutely worked in our favour. More recently, especially the way we deal with small mixed WEEE when it comes in. Every single item gets handled by somebody immediately it arrives before it goes into any WEEE pile. And the purpose of that is to remove any hazardous material from it. So batteries has been a big thing more recently. Vapes we see quite a lot of, and we're quite used to dealing with them. Although fair enough, we haven't been making a song and dance about it. But other things come along that somebody invented. I don't know if they're curling bongs or hair straighteners or what they are, but they've got tiny wee gas bottles in them. They're not electric at all, But if you burst one, you could be in serious trouble. We get in the obvious stuff like petrol lawnmowers, which again are not electrical, and generally are full of petrol as well. So we need to sort that out and deal with that before it goes into any WEEE pile. We get bullets, shotgun cartridges, emergency flares.
Really? Wow.
A lot.
And there's a lot of labour involved in it. It's quite time consuming, and it tends to be a bit more expensive than our competitors are at it. But we do it safely, and we do it well, and we're quite happy to continue doing it that way.
It's quite good. You can see that's the whole kind of basis of circular economy, isn't it, really? Because what you're taking in and actually recovering the metals and recovering all that sort of materials is what we're losing. And if we're not careful, there's not going to be enough raw materials to replace what we're using all the time. So actually to be able to recover all the critical metals and everything like that from these materials is really important.
Yeah, of course. I mean, from the IT side as well, we recover huge volumes of printed circuit board assemblies. We do recover chip components from those assemblies still. We still market these chips. We can recover memory modules from it. Once we've taken what we can use off the boards go down to a smelter down in England where they recover gold and silver, copper and palladium from it. So we are very, very much focused on recovering as much as we can, scrap metal, copper, absolutely as much as we possibly can recover from any item and achieve as much value as we possibly can as well. There is an element of reuse as well in what we do. Majority of the IT stuff we don't have permission to reuse because it's there for secure destruction. But there is a small percentage that we're allowed to refurbish, and we do resell some equipment. Prior to COVID, we did have a team refurbishing small mix WEEE. There's some quite interesting materials coming there. Marshall amplifiers, Singer sewing machines, just all sorts of unusual stuff that's still working, can be fully tested, made sure it's safe and remarket it. But just before COVID, SEPA sent us a notice about POPs and things. And
I knew you were going to get onto that subject at some point, Bruce. Explain what a POP is before you go further.
Oh, persistent organic pollutants, which are basically the flame retardants that manufacturers have put into electrical products and other products as well, furnitures, and it's going to hit the demolition industry as well shortly, I think. Yeah, the manufacturers, by regulation, they were told to put this stuff in, so that, if you dropped a cigarette on a piece of furniture and stuff, it just didn't immediately burst into flames. It got a chance to smoulder for a wee while before it actually caught fire to give you a chance to realise what was happening. And you couldn't buy a piece of furniture unless it had a triangle on it. And now it looks like we may not be allowed to resell any equipment or furniture if it has flame retardants in it over a particular level. So that kind of curtailed us a wee bit. We were waiting on SEPA deciding what they were going to do as far as reuse. So that was end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and we're still waiting. Having said that, SEPA have got a very difficult job. They've been tasked with this and said, you need to tell everybody, you can no longer recycle plastics, for example, from the back of TVs. They've all got to be incinerated. I don't know what nonsense that's all about. It's not the way to go, I don't think, at all. It's absolutely awful. But, we're continuing to have these discussions, but it's entirely not SEPA's fault. They've been told to do this by DEFRA, and in fairness, they've had a team of people in SEPA trying to convince DEFRA that Scotland should do things differently. But I think DEFRA are saying, no, the regulations are there in England, so you have to do exactly the same up in Scotland. So that's not what I'm doing, but never mind.
But you've got an interesting approach to how you're dealing with the plastics from the TV, haven't you? Because you've managed to identify the products with the pops and the products without the pops, and then so you've sort of split your plastic stream, haven't you?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, again, how we dismantle the TVs has worked in our favour. We dismantle them by hand. We don't put anything through a shredder. So the plastic back of a TV, which is where the pops is, we're able to remove those in one piece, and we're able to test them. It did take us a while to sort out the testing, and it took us over a year in actual fact before we realised we were doing it completely wrong. So we had to chuck all our data away, start again.
It's pretty hard to test for pops as well, because it's a whole group of chemicals. So there's as I understand, there's not a single sort of test you can do. It's more complicated than that.
I think if you can get your testing process sorted out and it's repeatable and consistent, it's very, very accurate. What you need to do after that then is to verify the results that you're getting, and the verification part of it is difficult. We tried umpteen universities and places in the UK to be able to verify our test results, and the long and the short of it, we didn't find anybody in the UK that could successfully do that. So we had to go to a specialist lab in Austria, in Vienna, to get this testing done. So that has worked extremely well and matched exactly what the results that we've been getting. So, you know, during the process, we've been testing a lot of TVs, and we were gradually building up a database of TVs and recording information longhand about manufacturers, model numbers, country of origins, year of manufacture, etc., etc., and then adding all the test results that we get alongside that. And we've got probably in the region of 40 or 50,000 individual tests. We've got 8,000 unique TV part numbers within that. So a lot of TVs have tested more than one of the same model number. And then it was a question of right, okay, we've got this database. What do we do with it? You know, we can't have somebody standing there reading the manufacturer and looking up a table and a model number. But we initially tried to use some sort of camera recognition thing, but it was expensive. We couldn't get that to work either. So it was a wee trip back to Dundee, in actual fact. Dundee's a very popular place. And we found a company called Zudu, who design apps for mobile phones. So we've been working with them for the last year and a half, and we now have an app that operates on any Android device, a tablet or mobile phone, that we can scan the manufacturer's label on the back of a TV, and the app will read the information that's on their manufacturer and model number, etc. It will compare it with the database, and it will come up with one of three results. Either it's got pops in it, or no, it doesn't have any pops in it, it's safe to recycle, or hang on a minute, we haven't seen that TV before, that needs to go for testing. So we keep adding, we're still adding to our database every day. But it's a very rapid process. It's just a question of scanning the thing, getting the label on the picture, pressing a button, and it tells you immediately. It just looks up our database for us and tells it that it works. So at that point, the TVs are simply routed like pops and non-pops, and we can dismantle them and make sure that we keep all the pops plastic separate from the non-pops plastic. In spite of the fact that televisions was one of the key areas, that was one of the worst type of products for having pops in it, we're actually only finding that 27% of televisions have pops in them at all. So we're able to go back to trading the remainder, the 72%, 73% thereabouts of plastic that comes in. We can trade that back into plastics recyclers so that plastic is safe to reuse and be recycled into something else.
So if the pops aren't being used in 70% of the TVs, does that mean that they found something else as a flame retarder, or are they just not adding them in? I mean, I'm not quite sure what the benefits are. And is it in more recent TVs that you're finding the pops aren't in, or is it not consistent with anything, just specific manufacturers? Or
there's a date that's been bandied around by the environment agencies, which is sort of 2007, 2008, and they are claiming that after 2008 there shouldn't be any electrical products with pops in.
All right, that's quite a long time ago then.
It's a long time ago, but what we're finding is that is completely incorrect.
Oh, fair enough.
Bruce, you're not meant to say that. That's the date that he's been given.
There's exactly the same percentage of TVs with pops in after, the 2000, whatever date it was, right up until now. There's still brand new TVs have persistent organic pollutants in them. So, we'll let them figure it out. They can argue amongst themselves for a while. We're going to continue what we're doing.
You just keep doing what you're doing, eh?
And I'll keep my head down for another wee while yet.
I'm just a bit concerned that I've got so much. I'm a hoarder. There's so much in my attic that I'm going to find one of these CRT telly somewhere, and I'm going to be panicking now that it hasn't imploded or whatever. I might have to go and find it.
It's like everything else, they don't implode on their own. It's
right,
designed, It actually has a steel implosion band around the edge of the screen. And what you need to do is to make sure that you release the vacuum inside the tube before you take that steel band off.
Right, I won't do that then.
Don't touch it, Jane. I think take it to your household waste recycling centre site is it's probably the official message.
Yeah, and it's just, like batteries, my view on batteries is that it's not the batteries that are causing the fires, It's
the shredding up of the batteries.
Well, you shred them, you can run over them with telehandlers, you get tablets and mobile phones, electric shavers, all sorts of stuff in with a WEEE. And if you just fling it in a big pile and then hit it with a bucket of a telehandler or something, why would you be surprised that you've caused a fire, It's just, it's how we deal with things. So, that's my opinion. I'm sure loads of people will completely disagree. But
so skipping back a bit, Bruce, or maybe skipping to now, it might be favourite role or favourite project you've had in your career?
Gee whiz.
Or the worst one it could be. The biggest disaster you had.
Well, there's been disasters, but no, I think in general, it's been good. Obviously, being involved with the Sinclair Spectrum computers and stuff was brilliant. Designing displays and seeing your design and manufacture, actually going into an aeroplane or a fighter aircraft, or even, the sexiest car phone in the world in Italy. It was just, it was fabulous. But I think also with the Restructa and CCL, the things that we have done with glass glow, it's called, which is the glass aggregate product. We're over the moon that we were able to designate that as a product and be allowed to sell it. It did take SEPA about 5 years to to even talk to us about it. They just immediately said, no, it's not. It's CRT glass. You can't do that. End of. So it was really a change of personnel, I think, in SEPA. Gary Walker came along and we spoke to him, and he says, that sounds interesting, we'll have a look at that. And hey presto, we got end of waste status on it, which is brilliant. But yeah, it was that was a bit of a struggle, and I suppose the POPs thing as well is it's been quite novel. We didn't really expect it. We didn't know which direction it was going to go in, really. But what had been a commodity for us, the plastics that we were reselling, it was generating considerable income for the business up until that point. And now we're turning that income into a cost. So there was a massive swing in revenue on it. So we felt we had to investigate it further and have a look, see if there's something that we could do. So yeah, that's been very successful too. So and I think the next successful thing will be maybe if I could get retired.
I think that leads on to Jane's next question, actually.
Which one? Tell us about your
current role and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my current role really is bringing the two companies together and getting them all working together as a team, so that they can continue to have a successful future. I'd need to say, we've been extremely fortunate with the teams that we have all the way through the business. From people on the shop floor to drivers, to the managers, and now to the directors that are there. We've got a total workforce now of around about 100 in Irvine, split kind of 50-50 between Restructa and CCL, and some of them have been there, pretty much since we opened. So that's a vast experience that these people have, and are able to provide into the business. We've more recently, it has been difficult getting people into what we do, but about 4 or 5 years ago, we started our own apprentice training scheme. So we bring in 5 or 6 apprentices at least once a year to join the company. It's not a 4-year apprenticeship like mine was. It's only a 1 year, but they do get a qualification at the end of it, and they also get a guaranteed role within the business at the end of it as well, as a permanent full-time employee. So that's been really successful for us. We've had some drop out and some didn't make it, but on the whole, I think the success rate has been pretty good. So I think at the moment, about 15 of the employees at CCL North in particular, 15 out of 50 have came through the apprentice training programme, and they're still with us. We're never going to find people with the experience that that we need to be able to dismantle things and know what different items are. So yeah, that's worked well for us. So yeah, if we can get the top end of the business finally fixed as well, we're looking for more people to bring in, quite a senior level in the business, and other kind of mid-management roles as well. You maybe see some adverts out and about looking for good people to come and join us. So if anybody's looking for a career change,
anybody looking for a job, that's it. This is your man. Yeah.
Give me a shout.
So in terms of the role that you've got and what you've been doing over your career, has that changed your sort of opinions and habits outside the workplace? I've just got this image of you going around like Currys and all these places going, no, that's got pops, can't recycle that one, and going into people's houses and looking at their tellies going, No, I think you need to change your telly. Or whether it's like, no, I haven't got any wee little electronic items stored underneath in a cupboard somewhere that I don't want to, I don't know what to do with them, like mine.
It's my answer is no. I don't know if
Hasn't
that's what it's
changed
meant to be.
at all. No, not.
I'm super impressed with my wife Christine. She's a champion at recycling. She knows much more about it than I do. I live in South Ayrshire, so is it 5 wheelie bins? I've got 5 bins, four wheelies and a 5 in a food bin.
5 in a food waste, and I hope you've got our bin app downloaded in your phone.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I use it every Sunday night before I can put the bins out. I always check. Christine just looks at what the neighbours have put out and she'll put that out. But I always like to check it. Yeah, I'm very impressed with your bin app. But no, she's definitely a better at recycling than I am at home. And I actually try and keep it quiet what I do at work, because when the neighbours find it, you get a wee champ at your door saying, "I've got a fridge."
Yeah, can you have a look at me telly?
Could you put this fridge in the back of your car and take it to your work and stuff? I'm going, no, I mean, that's no. You need to take it to the tip, and that way it gets counted along with everything else. And
the household waste recycling centre, Bruce.
All right, well, that's the tip.
Not the tip.
Yeah, right. Well, sorry, I'm a bit old-fashioned. Right.
There we go.
And you need to make an appointment now before you can go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting actually talking about that point. So South Ayrshire Council's putting appointments for the household waste recycling centre site, and they have had a huge drop in waste going into the site, and a huge amount is from traders that were using the site. And not paying for the waste, and the other one they've had, and they're looking at doing something about this, is quite a lot of the waste was coming from East Ayrshire, so it was East Ayrshire residents coming into work in Ayr and just using the site. Right. But they are actually thinking with the booking system they could probably get someone working between them, because East Ayrshire's got a booking system as well, so they could cross, allow residents in. So it's quite interesting what the opportunities the booking system is opening up for councils. So.
That would be good, because I think there are some materials that are difficult to dispose of in South Ayrshire, but I know a site in East Ayrshire that will take them. But when I spoke nicely to the gentleman there, he says, "No, you don't live here. You're not getting to do it."
Anyway, so next question: busy life, Bruce. How do you get away from all the work? And you mentioned whiskey earlier on. I think that might be is that a wee passion, no?
Whiskey? I happen to love whiskey. There's no secret in it. I'm now investing in whiskey and buying casks and stuff like that. But yes, I absolutely adore whiskey. It's really excellent stuff, and needs to be encouraged for people to have your national drink. But I have other pastimes as well. I do love. I love Scotland for a start. It's just how lucky are we to live in a country that like this. It's fantastic. So I love Scotland. I love fly fishing for wild trout, and I've got a camper van. So that you add those 3 together, and that would be my favourite pastime when I can manage to escape, get away up the north of Scotland and fish some lochs up there. When I can, but I've also got a wee bit of a car collection now as well, and I quite like refurbishing, rebuilding older cars. So it's keeps me occupied.
Keeps you busy. So you've alluded to this, I think. What's next for you in your career?
Retirement.
Retirement.
Yeah, that's it in one word.
I don't think you'll ever retire, Bruce. I don't have you down as a retiring person.
No, I need the people back at work to actually get the message. I mean, we're having really good fun at work, and it's good to see the interaction between the two companies happening now, because you would think we'd be, me being MD of both the companies, that we would have cooperated better in the past, but in actual fact, quite a lot of time we're competing against one another, which wasn't really what my intention was. So we're bringing them all underneath the group. We've done a wee bit of a management buyout last year, which has given the other 4 directors quite a significant shareholding in the business as well. And, you know, hopefully I can get down to my 3 days at least. That's a year I've been trying to do that. But we are abnormally busy right at the moment as a result of what happened up in Perth back in February. Very unfortunate incident. So we're trying to cope with as much of the overspill from that incident, but hopefully, you know, I think Enva have purchased the site.
Oh yes, one fact, that's me. One fact you want to share from your job, which you think people may not know. I think they've shared quite a lot, actually. I've been writing all these things down about CRTs and 27% TVs with pops.
Yeah,
organic.
I've shared quite a lot, you know, already. And one thing that I had made a note of was actually going back to liquid crystal displays and LCDs. And I discovered more recently that, you know, I mean, LCDs appear in everything now. Mobile phones, wristwatches, all sorts of kids' games, tablets, you know, computers, just TVs, everything. And we've already discussed, you know, they were invented by a guy, George Gray, actually was the person responsible for it. But he was actually prompted by this sounds like a brilliant guy, a guy called John Stonehouse. Turns out he's an MP, an ex-MP, or in the 60s he was anyway. He was Minister for Technology under Harold Wilson. And he discovered that the UK was spending far too much money on display technology, CRT, cathode ray tube, colour ones from America. We were spending more money buying colour displays from America than we were spending on the whole of the research in Concord and developing Concord. And he approached industry to try and get somebody in the UK to develop it, and George Gray happened to be that guy. So we've got a lot to thank John Stonehouse for, although a wee bit later in his career in 1974, he actually faked his own death. He was still an MP.
We always get the stories in Rubbish Talk, don't we?
Yeah. He was in Miami, and he left a pile of clothes on the beach to make it look like he'd gone off swimming and either drowned or been eaten by a shark or something. But in actual fact, he was off with his mistress, and he set up a new life in Australia. And he eventually got found out in Australia. He was opening loads of bank accounts under different names, and somebody recognised him, going, hang on a minute, you were in here the other day and stuff. And he got caught, basically, and he got shipped back to the UK. And he got to keep his job as an MP. How does that work?
I couldn't possibly comment, you know, that's getting into politics.
So,
anyway.
Try not to touch on politics here, Bruce.
Yeah, moving on.
So moving on, we've talked lots of acronyms. What's your favourite or least favourite one?
Oh, I've got 2, of course, and I know that you only want people to have one. But
yeah, we'll let you give a first and second, just since it's
you. years ago, there was one called Battered, which was
Battered.
best available treatment, recycling, recovery technology. Right?
Really?
You need to look it up. I had to, because I mean, I actually couldn't find a reference to it anymore. Battered, and I would like very much for my section of the industry to go back to Battered, as opposed to some companies who will remain nameless, who are more going down the catnap route, which of course is cheapest available treatment, narrowly avoiding prosecution. So I'm a big fan of doing things well and doing them to the best of our abilities. I don't think we should try and take shortcuts. We really should try and do the best possibly can within our industry.
I think that's something we've discussed quite a bit, Bruce, in the podcast, that quite often the waste sector gets pushed down the lowest price possible for things rather than the cost that it takes to do things. And that's one of our negatives really into it.
Yep, that is unfortunate.
Yep. So we're going to give you, this is probably quite dangerous, actually, giving Bruce a magic wand to sort something out here. What's your magic wand going to sort out?
And I think it should be quite easy, really. Just we should be looking for some better collaboration between government, regulators, the waste industry, and the manufacturers. There is very, very little involvement, of people outside their own industries. And I think if the manufacturers of equipment or designers, developers, people with knowledge of actually what's inside something, worked closer with regulators to help them understand what was there, or even if the regulators themselves went and asked the question rather than waiting on the waste industry having to, because the responsibility always comes on the recycler. No, you need to prove that it doesn't have POPs in this, for example, or whatever. I think the world would definitely be a better place. I don't know what's happening in the Scottish government. We don't appear to want to take our own stance on regulation of what we do here in Scotland. This seems that they're very happy to just plod on down the route in England. But before the WEEE directive came in, I was involved in the stakeholders committee with the Scottish government, and we had some really good ideas how we could introduce this, and we were concerned also about what would happen if we did introduce the WEEE directive in the format it was in, and we reckoned that it was going to put existing recycling companies out of business, and it was going to encourage illegal exports. And it turned out it was a complete waste of time of attending these meetings, because the instruction had already been given that we've following what England do, it doesn't matter what, and market forces shall prevail, is the words that we were told. And market forces have prevailed, and companies have gone to the wall, and illegal exports have increased. It's just totally unfortunate. I think we could do a lot better.
I know from talking to you previously, Bruce, the whole subject of illegal exports and stuff is probably a whole other podcast, because there's some quite interesting stuff there in terms of what you know. I totally agree with you about the manufacturers tying up, but it always does seem as if it's the waste management industry's problem, and you only need to look at what's happening with vapes at the moment, with millions and millions of these things being put onto the market, and it's now the waste management industry's problem, rather than this should be the manufacturers and the producers' problem, and they should be stepping up to the plate to do something about it.
Yeah, somebody has to pay for it at the end of the day, and although if you're dealing with one vape at a time and dismantling one at a time. It's relatively easy to do. It's not a difficult job to recycle it, but you know, if you've got a ton of vapes to process, it takes a long time. So the current sort of prices for that is round about £15,000 a tonne is the costs in recycling vapes, whereas other types of electronics are, you know, sort of £75 for just electrical appliances, maybe about £150 per tonne for TVs.
Wow, that's the difference, isn't it?
Well, it's a big difference when you get a ton of,
absolutely.
You get a ton of vapes in your waste. You know, you're 15 grand out. So,
Yeah.
I think I'm sure the compliance schemes can do a bit more to try and sort it. They just need to have a will to get on with it.
I think there's a lot of people trying to sort it. There's a lot of discussions about it anyway. I think everybody likes to discuss and research, don't they, when it actually comes to doing something. It's a totally different matter. But moving on, do you have any advice for anybody wanting to follow a similar career path to yourselves? How would they get started? And, you know, apart from obviously joining your apprentice scheme.
Yeah, I would encourage them to do it. You know, it's a great industry. It's kept my interest for, you know, the last 25 years probably. Every day is different. You never know what somebody's going to bring to you and say, any idea what this is? You're going, no. So it is a very interesting industry. And, you know, I'm not even sure we're a real part of the industry. I feel we're a tiny wee organisation away out in the periphery.
It's a really important sector, Bruce. Hugely significant sector.
It's important to us, definitely. And, you know, but we enjoy what we do. And yeah, I would encourage anybody to get into it any way they can, whether it's just getting a job somewhere or going through university, taking an apprenticeship. It's, you know, probably you're going to be safe enough for the next 20 or 50 years, you know, in employment, and there's not many industries can offer you that, I don't think.
There's always going to be waste, isn't there? No matter what you do, there's always going to be
unfortunately,
waste or
yes.
recycling or reuse or remanufacture or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
Well, I've heard so many new names for it over the years. I still call it recycling, but a lot of people will tell me now that's a dirty word and you shouldn't be using the terminology recycling. But, well,
I think you're probably doing, I suppose to a certain extent, you're doing more than recycling, aren't you? You're doing the reuse, you're doing the, you know, the removing the products and getting them reused, you know, so you're probably a level up from recycling, if we're honest, but I don't really know there's a word to describe that. So recycling's probably good. Anyway, just to finish off, we as an Albion are working with yourselves for, I believe, I never knew this until you or Alison told me, there's an International E-Waste Day on the 14th of October. So we are planning on letting all the staff use our office as a drop-off location for all their waste electrical stuff they've got lurking in their cupboards that they no longer require. And you, hopefully, maybe not you personally, are going to send somebody around to pick it all up for us. So
looking forward to that. Somebody will come down and visit you prior to that and probably put in some containers, you know, depending on what you think you might get. You might be surprised if Jane gets all these CRTs.
She's not bringing that CRT.
I was going to say, you haven't seen my brinking attic. Oh my goodness. I did actually find the other day, I was looking and I thought, I don't know what's in that box. Took out the box and it was full of like cables, it was full of, you know, chargers and things. I'm thinking, I don't know how long that box has been there. Obviously I don't need them.
Yeah.
but you never know. You never know when you might need that cable that you haven't had the equipment to charge it for the last 20 years. But you never know.
You never know. That's correct.
And that's the sort of service you offer, CCL offers for companies.
Of course.
Anyway, yeah.
Yep. We deal with companies up and down the whole of the UK, and we'll come and have a chat about what your requirements are specifically, and we'll provide a service that suits you.
Perfect. We'll look forward to it. I look forward to seeing. Well, I know I've got stuff in the house that I've already allocated for getting shipped to the office, so we'll look forward to having a big pile for you. So
good.
I might need to get the Albion van.
Yeah, to bring it down. I'm not going to get that much. Not going to quite get that much. I think that's us exhausted all our questions. All I would say is thank you very much for your time. I think there's probably listeners we've got that'll have a wee nostalgia trip about the various technologies you've mentioned. If there's younger listeners that have no clue what they are, they need to Google some of these things we've discussed and find out about them. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. That was really interesting.
Thank you, guys.